Hey guys, it's Dodderin, or the Boondoggle Man. Today I have a video showing how to make a boondoggle. This one is one of the most requested ones on the site, and it's a heart. Actually, I'll show you how to make two linked hearts. For this heart, I'm going to use red and black boondoggle, and I'm actually going to need 4 strands of boondoggle. I'm going to make them all approximately 4 feet long. If it turns out that's not long enough, look on the screen for some words where I'll correct myself, but I believe 4 feet is correct. Alright, to get started though, we're going to take 2 strands and set them off to the side. And this is also going to be a little bit of a tutorial video. With the remaining 2 strands, we want to find the centers of those strands. So I'm trying to reach off camera to grab the other 2 ends of these strands. Here they are. And I'm going to try to line them up, and then as I pull them through, where they loop in the middle is the center of those 2 strands. Okay? Alright, so now it really doesn't matter how you do this, but I am going to put the red strand facing away and towards me, and then the black strand left and right. Okay, so let's make this nice and clean looking. Alright, so to get started, I've got this red strand under the black strand. We need to start the heart with a square stitch. That's pretty easy to do. To keep everything in place, I'm just going to use my thumb to hold that together. Okay, we need to make 2 loops out of the strand that's facing you and going away from you. So I'm going to take this red strand and I'm going to put it next door to the other red strand. That'll make the first loop. Then I'm going to take the other red strand and put it next door to the first one. So these 2 loops are side by side, not crossing each other. And then again, I'm a righty, so I'm going to start on the right side. If you're a lefty, it might be easier to start over here. So since I'm the righty, I'm going to grab this left strand and I'm going to do the first weave. It's pretty easy. You go over the first one and under the second one and you pull through. And since this is the first strand, I want to make sure that it stays up at the top. So that strand is going to come down here. It's not going to cross. Alright? So now I'll just grab that other black strand, and again, we're going to go over the first and under the second. And it becomes the bottom. As I pull this tight, you'll see a nice looking square stitch. You see that? Okay, for this project, we need to do 2 square stitches. So here's that first square stitch. If we take a look at the strands, this red one is on the right side of the stitch. That red one is on the left. So when I make the loops, the right hand strand is going to make a loop that stays on the right side of the stitch. The left hand strand is going to stay on the left side of the stitch. 2 loops. If I move my fingers away a little bit and we look inside the stitch, you'll notice that this black strand is on the top. So we're going to start by grabbing the left hand strand this time because it's on the top. We'll go over and under, and again, stay on the right side of the stitch, or on the top of the stitch. Okay, we'll grab the left one, same thing, over and under, and pull it through. Okay, we want to try to keep it so it's not going to get all twisty. And then as we pull it tight, do you see that? Here it is. Okay, So now we've got 2 square stitches. Now we need to turn this square stitch into a Superbrick stitch. To continue to make it easy, let's just make 2 loops out of this strand that goes away from us and towards us. So all the cross strands will be this way. Well, since this cross strand is a black one, I'm going to reach down and grab the other red strand. Using the middle of that red strand, we are going to insert it inside of this stitch. So here's the middle of that strand right at my thumb. And what I would like to do is place it over the stitch, kind of on an angle, splitting the black one. Do you see that? Alright, I'm just going to hold it in place with my thumb. So we'll make our loops. If we turn aside here, notice this one is on the left. So actually I'm going to start with the bottom one because it's the guy on the right to make my first loop. Okay. Whoops, come on. So there's one loop. Then we'll use this strand to make the other loop. 2 loops side by side. Now in the actual square stitch, this black one was used. So we're going to start with the black one because if you look inside, do you notice it's the one on the top? So we're going to start with that one, over and under. Now we're going to take the new red one, the one on the left. We'll go over and under and sit next door to the black one. We'll reach and grab the other red one and do the same thing. Now while I'm doing this, this thumb is holding this loose red one in place so it doesn't move around. Over and under and through. So you'll see now we've got the black, the 2 reds, and now we're ready for that last black. I want to grab this loop so we can still see that it's a loop. You see that? Come on. Okay. And then the last stitch is that black one that started our square stitch. So we're going to go over and under and through. And now as we slowly pull this thing tight, you're going to see that our square stitch has now become a brick stitch. And it's actually curving around the square stitch, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want it to do. You see that? Okay, so now we've got to do another brick stitch. So to do that, we'll do our loops. Looking at the stitch, this red one is on the right hand side. So that becomes the first loop. This red one is on the left. It'll become the second loop. Then looking at the stitch, this black one on the left is at the top. So we'll start at the left. Then you go back and forth. Over and under and through. Then we'll come and grab the next one, which is a red one. Over and under and through. Got my kids getting ready for the dentist. You can hear the toothbrushes in the background. Okay. Other red one. Over and under and through. Yep, that one's turned a little. We don't want it to turn. Then the last one is the black one, which will go over, under, and through. And if we, again, take a good look at it, we'll have another brick stitch. This one's real loose, so yeah, it'll look like a brick in a minute. Yeah, there you go. Okay, you see that? Now, even at this point, I think we'll be able to see something. Look at that. We're beginning to get a little bit of a point. Okay? All right. Our next step is going to be our final insertion. Okay, so to make the last insertion, we need to take our last black, in the middle is where my thumb is, and insert it in between this red one that we just inserted a bit ago. So I'm going to overlap it on top of the stitch, just like we did with the red one. I'll make my 2 loops out of this red one, and then weave this one in the same way. So again, I'm using my thumb to hold it in place. The top black one is on the right, so that's the one I'm going to start with. So I'll make a loop, I'll make another loop. Those will be my 2 loops. And then again, starting with the black one that we already did, which is hiding back here, here it is, we'll go over the first and under the second. That'll get that one started. Then we'll go with this red one that we already put into the stitch. Over and under and pulled through. Alright, now we need to grab this new black one. And again, that thumb is holding it, so I can tug on this and it's not really going to move around much. We'll go over and under and through. Then the other side of that last strand to be inserted. Over, under, and through. Okay? Now we're back to doing the ones that are already in. We've got 2 more to do. We've got this red one, over and under and through. And this one's a little twisted, so we want to twist it around so we don't get it tangled. And then the last one is this black one, which will again over and under. And if we did it right, it should be coming through a loop. See that? That's locked in place. Okay? Alright, so now if we look at it, we've got a nice loose Superbrick stitch. So now I'm slowly just pulling it all together. And if we did it right, we ought to have a stitch that's going back and forth with reds and blacks. You see that? Okay. Last step in this piece is to do one more Superbrick stitch using all of these strands. How come? Oh no, we're good. We're good. I thought we goofed. So we'll start here, because remember, this one is on the right side. So we'll make our loop here. I'll hold it in place with 2 fingers. We'll make the other loop. I'll hold it in place with 2 fingers. The thumb just holds it in place. Okay? If we look at the stitch, the strand on top is this black one. So that's the one we're going to start with. Okay? And then it's just back and forth. Just over and under, back and forth. Okay, pardon me if this is hard to see, but come on. Okay. The other black one. Remember, you're just going down the line according to the way the strands sit in that stitch before. Now look, this is the second last strand. This is the loop that's locked in. This is the second last one. This is the loop that's not locked in. So when I go under, you see it's really not in. You see that? It's this last strand, this black one, that's going to go over and under and lock that red one from falling out of the stitch. And there it is. Again, a real loose looking one. Tighten it up a bit, and it starts to look like a really nice, see that? Superbrick stitch. Okay, take a look at it again. Look at that pointy side. You see that? This is what we're looking to do. Okay? So, before we continue, this stitch started as a square stitch. You do 2 stitches a square, then you add a strand, create brick, do 2 stitches of brick, then add the last strand and do 2 stitches of super brick. That's what brings us to this point. Our next step is going to be to split it off into either 2 square stitches or 2 circle stitches, and that's what we'll do next. Okay guys, if we look at the top of this super brick, we've got the 2 strands that run away and towards us, and then we've got 3 strands on this side and 3 strands on this side. What we need to do is take the top 4 strands, this one, this black one, this red one, and this black one, and create either a square stitch or a circle stitch. So to make that a little bit easier, I'm going to use the other hand to kind of hide the other strands. So when we're done, we're only focusing on the 4 that we need to make a circle or a square out of. The problem is you've got 2 coming out here. It's not really a problem when you learn the trick. This bottom strand is going to become the strand that comes down here. Now you could choose to do square stitch, but I think round stitch or circle stitch looks better. And if you watch, here's why. We would have to make a loop that came this way. And if I just hold it there for a second, look at this twist. That's a pretty fierce twist, and you'll actually see it in the finished product as a fat stitch, not little like these. But what if we were to make it a circle stitch, which would mean bring that loop over here. Look at the difference. It's a lot smaller. You see that? Now to finish it off, this red one has to make a loop. But again, side by side. Kind of like that. Okay? Now, to stop it from falling apart, we'll grab the other black one on the right, and I'll make this red one a little smaller. We'll go over this one and under the black one and pull it towards us. Like that. Then this red one, we'll tie it all together. Let's see if I can do this backwards. It's going to go under this black one, or I'm sorry, over this black one and under, can we get it in there? The red one. And we'll pull it through. And there's a loose circle stitch. Okay, if we pull it together, you see that? There's the beginning of a circle stitch right there. Okay? Now, this worked because we already had part of the project done. If you were doing circle stitch from the start, this would not work. The stitch would fall apart. You would actually have to do a square stitch like we did down here. One square stitch. Then you could go over to circle stitch. Alright, so I'm going to just tighten this one up a little bit, and I'll do one more on this side. Okay? Doesn't matter where you start. I'll start up here. If I do square, the loop comes over here. I want to do circle, so it's going to cross the middle. Then this string is also going to cross the middle. Do you see that? And then here's the other place that people have problems. Not only do the loops cross, these cross. So if you look in the stitch, this red one is at the top of the stitch. When it does its over and under, it's actually going to become the bottom of the stitch. So we need it to be over here. So it's crossed. Then this black one will do the same. We'll go over this one and under that one. And it will create another circle stitch. Do you see that? Okay, I'm going to leave this side alone for a minute. So I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to hide all the strands that deal with this circle. And we're going to pull the other ones out. So we've got the two on this side, the one on this side, and this one. Look at this. Does this look familiar? It's exactly the way the other one looked. So we'll have this strand and this strand as our two that come out. Okay, so I'll start this side so you can see it again. I'll start with this one. I'm going to cross over the middle like that. Then the red one will come over like this. Okay, again, the black one is on the top of the stitch. So this one is going to go over the top, under the bottom, and it's going to become the new bottom. Just like this. This will leave the red one. The red stitch will come over the black, under the red, and out the top of the stitch. And this one's twisted, so we'll twist it around so it stays nice. Pull that nice and tight, and you'll see the start of another little circle. There it is again. Okay? Alright, we'll do one more circle, and then I'll tell you what I'm going to do, but I won't show you on camera. Alright, so here it is again. I'll do this red one. I want to cross, so it's going to come over the guy next to it, not to the other side. This one, over the guy next to it. Let's see if I can hold it in place that way. Come on, get it so it's the right twist. There it goes. You see that now? Okay. And then again, remember the trick. The guy on the top of the stitch is going to become the guy on the bottom when you're done. So this red one, whoops, slippery today, over this one, under this one, and out the bottom. Okay, whoops, pulled it too far. Okay, and then the last one is that other black one, and it's going to go over and under, just like this. Okay, all right, pull it tight, and we're done. All right, so I have got 2 circle stitches on the left side, 2 circle stitches on the right side. The next step I'm not going to do on video. When I come back, the next step is going to be done. I want to continue the circle stitch on each side until I get 2 to 3 inches on each side. I'll tell you exactly why I can't tell you specifics when I'm done. Alright, so when we come back, I'll have 2, they almost look like horns or antlers coming out of circle stitch. Alright, hold on a second. Okay guys, I finished, and then I discovered I goofed. I had said that we want to finish it off by putting circle here. But then as I was finishing it up, I remembered circle for the heart is a bad one to use because sometimes this inside part wants to twist out. So it really is not the best stitch to use. So what I did is I created another black and red one right here. Alright, it has the same steps that we already did, except when I split it off down here, I did the square stitch instead of the circle. And then I brought that square out to the end. Okay? So I'm actually going to switch it over to a square design because I think it looks better. I'll have to figure out something to do with this one that has something to do with maybe the way circle has tendency of twisting. So maybe that'll become a new project you'll see later on. But let's go back and take a look at this one. If you remember, this is where we started down here. And if we just turn it for a second, you notice the side of this is red. So if we're going to have this look like a heart, and there's going to be one of these on the inside, we want red to be at the top. Now what's going to happen is we're actually going to bend the heart around like that. Well, in order to do that, we're going to take our two squares, size them up so they're nice and straight, and we're going to look at it from this angle. And if you take a look at it from this angle, you'll see we've got a square stitch here and a square over here. This square stitch has a red strand coming out the left on the top. This square stitch has the red strand coming out the right on the bottom. So they kind of fit in nicely. You need to make sure that when you finish both sides and you do your little measurement, that you have this kind of a thing going on. Whatever color you had down here, it would be a good idea to have that, the color that's coming out. If you notice they don't match, like maybe this red one was coming out this way, it just means you have to do one more stitch on that side. Okay? Now the other thing I want to point out before we finish this off is that the length has changed. If you were to measure this out, you would actually see that this is about 3.5 to 4 inches long. All right? Even though I'm a tight stitch person, that 3.5 to 4 will make a bigger heart and it'll look nicer. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this and we're going to turn it upside down like that. And then the right side is going to bend up this way and the left side is going to bend up that way. And again, we want to come in here. Hey, 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 dogs. Stop barking. And we want to bring it in, and you'll notice this time, let me tighten this one up a little bit. This time, it's the black stitches that have lined up. So let me get this going the right way so we don't goof it up. There we go. So we can see this. Okay, come on. There it goes. We have the stitch on my right has a black one coming out the left on the top. Do you see that? And the stitch on my left has a black one coming out on the bottom. Right here. Okay? Now we need to tie them back together. And the way to do that is to take both of these squares and recombine them into a Superbrick stitch. This black one is going to come sideways. This black one is going to come sideways. So I'm just going to grab those two and just keep them that way to keep the orientation correct. So now this red one is on the bottom, this red one is on the top. So I can create my two loops just this way. You see that? I'm going to see if I can go down into my hand here. Okay. There are the two loops. And then we have to carefully, and this is where it's going to get tough, weave them through. I want to get all these up where I can get them. There we go. So if I look at these two stitches, on the right side, this red one is the farthest to the right. So this is going to go over and under, and again, stay on the right. I'm going to see if I can get this so it stays straight. There we go. Okay, so that's going to stay there. This is the toughest part of this stitch, is recombining it. Now, if I look at the stitch, it's going to be this black one. So I want to take this loose black one, just kind of get it out of the way for a minute. There we go. So that this black one can go over and under, and again, stay next to that first red one. Now we're ready for one of the loose black ones that will go over and under. So it sits next to the first one. Okay? Then, again, keeping them all straight, and boy, is this a toughie. right here. This is why this video took so long to make, because this is a tough thing to show on camera. It's a little easier when it's just you doing it. Here's that other loose black one. Over this strand, under that strand. And we'll pull it almost tight. And I'm noticing it's twisted, so I'm going to twist it around again. So that hopefully, is it going to be okay? Nope, still twisted. Come on. There it goes. Okay. Now we're ready for the ones that are already part. The last black one and the last red one. Okay, so now we've got a pretty messed up looking thing here. But what this has now created is a Superbrick stitch. So I'm going to kind of let go of the whole thing and carefully and slowly begin pulling it together. Do you see that? Don't pull it super tight until you're sure that all your strands are doing what they need to be. Over, under, over, under, and so on, all the way down. When you're sure it's looking good, I want to check this one to make sure it didn't twist, and that's good. When you're sure it's good, you can then pull it tight. Okay? Alright, if you remember from the beginning, we had two of these. That was the first one. The first one's always going to be loose and a little odd looking. It's the second one that does two things. It helps tighten it all together, and it makes it look correct. There's our two loops. And then pretty standard stuff, right? Over and under. Now that they're all together again, working with it is a lot easier. I just want to make sure that we don't twist. There we go. And where is it? This black one right here. Alright, over and under. Alright, all the black ones are in the middle again, just like they were in the beginning. This black one, over and under. Last black one on this left side, over and under. Last black one on this side, over and under. And then the red one to tie it all together. Okay, now tighten this one up and it'll really look nice. It'll look both like, see that? It looks both like a Superbrick and it's part of the heart. Now, before we continue, we'll come back up and twist this back down so that we get the heart. Do you see that? Okay, so if you take a look at it, the black is on the inside of the heart all the way around. The red is on the outside all the way around. Don't worry about it if it's not keeping its shape. I've got a trick for that later on. But for now, that's good. Alright, we're not done though. We're going to come back here. Alright, again, I'm going to tighten this up again. Now we've got a problem. Earlier when we started it, I talked about inserting a strand. But now we've got to start getting rid of strands. This was our second Superbrick. We now have to take this Superbrick and drop it back to a brick stitch. What I want to do is lose the middle strand on both sides. The easiest way to do that is to get that extra strand out of the way. So I'm going to push this strand down and I'm going to push this strand down so that as I'm holding it, all the strands I want to use are up top. My 2 for the loops and the 4 that I will weave with. Okay, so again, make my 2 loops and do the weave. Watching for twists. When we finish this one, we're going to have to be careful that we pull the end strands tight so that we squeeze in that Superbrick back into a brick. So here's that last strand. So now we've got this loose brick. But here's what I'm talking about. If we just tighten this up, it looks a little strange. Here it goes. Ready? It won't look good. See that? It doesn't quite look right because we've got to pull those two end strands to squeeze it back together into a brick. And again, this is the first one. The first one always looks a little odd. Okay? So again, keeping those two black ones that we weren't using, which is this one here and this one here, out of the way. I'm just gonna grab them just like that. Okay? Now we can do the last stitch of brick. Okay, sorry, I lost the battery on my camera, so we got a new battery. Alright, we had left off with the last brick stitch that was loose. So we now want to pull this last guy really tight, and again, making sure those ends are really tight. And this one here, I am going to just kind of go the extra yard here. There we go. So if you take a look at it, we've got a nice brick stitch. Alright, we're almost done. Now we've got 6 strands that we need to drop down to 4 to create that last square stitch. So again, these two have to stay. Which two do we drop? The outside two we have to use. So these two blacks are now out of the picture. So I'm going to reconfigure my hands so that the only strands that are in play now are these 4 red ones. We'll make one final square stitch, do the over under, and again that one's twisted right here, and we'll pull them tight. Remember, all 4. This one's going to look really weird because it wants to stretch back. You see that? Into the longer brick. So that's why that last one is going to come in real handy. Alright, so we're going to make this last over and under. Same thing on this side. Last over and under on this side. Okay, come on, get in there. Whoop. There we go. And then again, pull this really, really tight. Look at that. Now it's a little red one. Okay. That's a little weird. Didn't we start with a red and a black? I think maybe we should have left the red ones off. That might have looked better. But that's alright. So now we'll take a look at what we've got. There's the heart. And here are all the little strands. See that? Okay, you've got a couple of choices here. I like clean hearts, so my goal is going to be to trim off all of these strands. Another possibility is to create tassels. Now again, I've kind of goofed, and one of my daughters just walked in and is about to discover the goof. She made a heart of her own. This was, you can talk, I know, I'm sorry honey. My goal was to link these two together like you saw in that one video. But I goofed. Here's what I'm going to do off camera. I'm going to undo the bottom of this and redo it so that these two get linked, but I won't do that on camera. Okay? Now, I can't do this on the video or else I can't correct it for my daughter. But what you would now do is trim off these strands. Now, what she wanted to do on the bottom of hers is create the tassels on the bottom. So it looks a little different. You see that? And then again, you've got the point here and the point here. Okay? Now, last thing before I say goodbye for now. How do you get it to keep its form? A couple of things. Once they're all cut off or all the tassels are coming straight out, find a flat surface like a table, mold it the way you want it to be molded, then get yourself something really heavy like a book or a stack of books and just stack it on top of that heart. Let it sit for about an hour. That'll let it keep that shape. Okay? If it's a warm day, you might also even toss it into the refrigerator for half an hour before you do the book. Right now it's pretty hot in my house, and these strands are kind of sticky and they're kind of squishy. Okay, so if you wanted to keep its shape, it would be a little easier if these things were a little bit more stiff. So toss it in the fridge for about a half an hour, bring it out, flatten it out, put your book on it, take your book off, and you've got a heart. Okay? Alright, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to be able to do more in the future. We'll see you later. Bye-bye. Hey, it's Dodder and the Boondoggle Man again. Wanted to show you the real finished project. My daughter was bummed, so I undid the bottom of mine, this one, and linked it into hers. Okay, basically it means that when you're at that step where you're bringing the two together, you just take your other heart and drop it on and then combine. I also chose to use tassels on the bottom of mine. I don't usually use tassels on mine,